once a year or multiple times a year, actually, I meet face to face and also physical is possible. But we have this once a year conversation in the beginning of the year where we try to talk about something that can help us also to become a better version of ourselves. And this is actually we just checked before we went on. Here's the fifth time we are meeting here, and we talked about a lot of different things over time. And that was something we started talking about in the end of last year, as we were talking about, well, what are we going to be talking about, this year? Because we talked about the power of consistency. We talked about, how do you set better goals and intention? We talked about belief systems. And this time we started to talk about, it was probably my fault a bit because I've been through quite a transition last year. I moved country and I took my whole family with me, which was like a bigger mission than I thought. And then I got involved in all kinds of new projects and work. And suddenly life was demanding. All areas of life was in change or transition. We're also going to talk about why we don't call it change, or we try to avoid the word change. And it was actually all good, but it was very demanding on the system. And I think Ali said to me before we met just before Christmas, and then he said online, he said, "You look bone tired." And he was absolutely right. Yeah. And we're going to come back to that in a moment. But such a pleasure to have you back, Ali. And I can't wait to dive into today's subject around transition and how we become better at managing them. Yeah.
Great to be here again. I can't believe we're here again. It comes around so quick, doesn't it? It's really lovely. Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, and also another little note to Ali, and the audience probably knows, because actually Ali is, again, last year he was the most listened to in 2024, and also in 25 again, with the most listened to conversation. So we know it has an impact. We know people are listening in. So we hope that's the goal today again, is we help you to become better at both the small and big transitions in life, because we also have transition in our day-to-day life. So maybe we should start talking about how we look at change and why we talk about change and transitions and why we define that. Because in my view, change is like this big thing where there's a lot of obstacles and you need to be almost concerned and prepared, but you don't, and it goes out of control. You're already with the word says, there's going to be trouble. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult to get everybody on board or get yourself over this. But actually, if you see it as a transition that you decided to do and actually use it as a transition, both the small and the big things in life, then it actually all gives sense when you look back on it, on the journey. But I don't know how you actually work with your clients and how you talk about these things, because I think you have a quite interesting take on transitions versus change.
Yes, I agree. Change feels like such a huge thing when you sort of throw that into the conversation. All those things I think comes into people's minds. I mean, I think first of all, let's tackle the kind of the social media side of it, who say have cold baths, get up at 5 a.m, eat the right food, do this, manifest, say the right things, and change will just happen. And it's a very sort of simplified version of it. And change is a lot different to that. It's not just one hack or one thing that you just suddenly start doing, which I think was why people run out of steam on those things as well, because they don't see the change or the transformation or the shedding of the skin that they're looking for. So yeah, my view on it is that we are who we are. We're never going to change fundamentally. We are who we are. And really what it is about shedding the skin. And it's really finding the true version of ourselves, the less performative version of ourselves. And many people that I meet and I listen to and talk to, I think as you get older, you realize actually that you want to be but you want to be a truer version of yourself. And when clients come to me about navigating transition or growth or reinvention, we often talk about sort of six pillars, Michael. And we were talking a bit about earlier about it. So for me, change is not some big, huge thing. It's a very gradual thing. It's an understanding of actually where you want to be. So the 6 pillars that I use are the origin story, your where are you from? What's your belief system? What have your mentors told you? What have you learned? What do you believe in? That is your sort of core of your being and why you do certain things. Then you've got your sort of value system, which is how do you want to be? What is important to you? What really is that drives you forward? And what is your sort of North Star? Then the third one is something I think not enough people think about is safety, is the nervous system.
Mm.
You can't go through any sort of transition or growth or reinvention without really understanding your nervous system. Like so many people that I work with initially are really living in fight or flight, and they're asking for sort of better leadership or to grow or to transition. And the first thing we have to do is for them to understand that actually they're living in their fight or flight system so much of the time. And when they're not in their fight or flight, mostly they're crashed out on a sofa or crashed out or trying to sleep, whatever, or they can't sort of talk when they get home. They've given everything to their business. So what we're trying to do all the time is to think about how do we get you up to the upper level, which is the sort of calm, connected place. So the nervous system is the third thing I think hopefully we'll end up talking quite a bit about today.
Mm.
Then there's the sort of the vision roadmap. Where do you actually want to be? What is it that you want to achieve? Because most people they will talk about what they don't want, but actually a lot of people don't even know where they want to be. So there's really an understanding about where they want to be. Then there's the identity and foundations. Now that's not new. That's very much a James Clear way that he looks about it. If you want to be something, you have to take on the identity of that person. If you want to go running, you have to become a runner. So we can talk about that and what the foundations are for that. And then there's the implementation stage, which is the how you're going to actually implement it, the 1%, the micro steps, the goals, the habits that you put in place to make those happen. And those 6 have to be sort of joined up, and they come in at different levels, but everybody has to go through those stages in order to go through some kind of transformation, shedding of the skin.
Yeah, and I think it's really, and I think that your pillars are spot on, Ali. I said that before. And also, if you take them on, when you have to get a group of people to do something new in the team, for example, this is actually the same thing you're going through. What is the team's origins, or what is their, where are they, where everybody's nervous system is. Yeah, is this balanced, is it unbalanced? Yeah, how from a team level, I can see that's often what happens in teams, that actually you forget to think about that when you put in new change as the leader. You come up with a thing, you communicate it, you say who it is, the responsibility, and so on, but you don't actually go the level down and actually ask, where do they actually come from? What story are they carrying up to now? And how is that going to impact that? And actually, how do they actually deeply inside feel right now that goes things on in their life outside work, yeah, that can impact their nervous system, yeah, loss or change or whatever it is, yeah.
I was talking to some clients early this morning, and we were talking about how their operations people, their directors, walk into the premises to talk to people that they're working with, and we were talking about where are their nervous systems, where are they sitting in their system before they even walk in, and they've probably taken a call from their partner or from their boss, or something happened, and they take that energy, that nervous system energy, into the room with them. They're about to have a difficult conversation, and immediately they're on the back foot. And the person they're going to have that conversation with is also on the back foot and can feel that energy as well. So that nervous system management and how we manage that is so important to as you say, any sort of team transformation, any conversations the difficult conversations we're going to have, and any personal change that we're going to go through as well.
And it's quite interesting at this time of year, if you go on LinkedIn, it's probably anywhere I go on from social media, but everywhere you go right now, there is the thing, setting yourself up for the new year. That's probably been on since mid-December. Yeah, well, you need to be in charge, change. These are the simple hacks you need to do now to get there. And what is your view on that? Because lots of people jump into that. And I'm very much on the contrary view, is like, it's a journey, yeah, and actually it's a long process, and sometimes it may be just that one thing you want to change will take you a very long time. That's not like these 90 days acceleration to, a better, version of yourself, or becoming millionaire, or whatever the promise is, yeah. But there's all this pain put up, and then we'll take you from here to there when you run this program, which I think is very interesting, because I bought into that before. I was one of the, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. I want all this
Yeah.
quick fix. Yeah. Din. And I
Yeah.
found out over the years it doesn't work, because.
No.
Yeah.
How do I feel about it? I think there is a lot of noise on LinkedIn at the moment in terms of lots of gifts. There's a lot of people telling other people how to live, what the best are, best versions. And I think we live in a world, especially on LinkedIn, where everybody is listening to podcasts, is reading certain books, is seeing things on TikTok, Instagram. We all have an idea of what we're all supposed to be doing. And we are quite good at telling others what to do. I saw a brilliant piece in the Times the other day, and it was just talking about the middle-aged influencer who is telling everybody what to do and how they should do it. And there's a funny section at the bottom about, and the only time he sees his wife is when they're at the therapy, the couples therapy, because that's the only time he'll talk to her, because he's so busy telling the world how to live a certain way. I think we have to start with ourselves, right? We have to start with ourselves, and we have to understand that we are human and we're all making mistakes. None of us are so superhumans, and I think we could do less of people telling us how to be, and focusing much more on ourselves and how we're actually living. And I think it goes back to that same piece that we have to look at ourselves before we start telling others, and our own nervous systems, our own origin story, our own value system. What are we actually doing in order to move forward before we start telling others how to live?
If we dive in a bit into, and we might not be able to do all the pillars, but we will definitely try to cover most of them. And you already touched the thing, but I think, like, let's start with the origin story. You touched a bit on it before when you explained about the pillars, but when you work with people, what are the typical things you see and you go in and do, and what is the outcome when you start talking about pillar one? Awareness, because to change or to do a transition, you need to be aware that there's something happening.
I normally get them to do an exercise. Actually, something that I've started doing much more of is to work with a bit of AI, and I've set up an AI program for them to go in and just talk about. It was actually a Daniel Priestley principle that I learned, I think probably 6 or 7 years ago now, actually, is to really go in sort of from 0 to 10. What did I learn? What experiences do I feel shaped me? Even little moments that would have come out at those times. A teacher saying that you're no good at maths, for instance, or a parent saying you're always a naughty boy, or parents saying we only like good girls. So those little moments, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and upwards. And we just try and capture those moments. And then really what we do is just review everything through there and understand how that is then impacting on their adult life, how they're performing because of that origin story. And then I think for so many clients, it very quickly they get to see, because we don't stop and think about how performative we are from our origin story. We just think that that's the way we are until you start, and all that information has to come from somewhere. So when we go back and look at it, I think for a lot of clients and friends that I do it with as well, they get to see kind of why they are who they are. And I think that's such a good starting point, because you can only change what you're aware of. And we've all blind spots, and the origin story for a lot of us is our blind spot. How we react in arguments, how we react to confrontation. I grew up in quite a confrontational family. I'm not, I wasn't very I didn't enjoy confrontation. It's something I had to teach myself. But I realized, okay, it was very confrontational with my father. So I just, that was the origin story that I worked out myself. So it's a wealth of knowledge, Michael. If you're going to do any change, that is where there's so much knowledge to start with. And of course, knowledge is wonderful, but it's what you do with it.
Yeah, I think what's interesting in your own story can both be an advantage and disadvantage when I talked with you about these things. Yeah, it can both be something that excels you, but as much as it can excel you, it can also really pull you below the line. Yeah.
You were talking about why you work so hard, right? And we've got
Uh,
similarities around that. Is that both our fathers were really hard workers. They expected hard work. They expected early mornings. We didn't watch TV. There was always some job to do in the house. We were expected to go out to work very early to earn, paper rounds and then washing up and stuff. You and I shared a very similar story. And lo and behold, I'm in my 50s, you're in your 40s. We're still hard workers. And for
uh,
us to sit on the sofa and not do anything is quite tricky.
it
It's because
is.
it's embedded in our system.
I would say the word is actually terrifying sometimes. Yeah. I feel like useless. That's the words I could feel. And I just told you about my Christmas because I was very tired after we moved from Brighton to Copenhagen to live last year, the whole family. And that has been like, there's been so much going on. I haven't been sizzled. I've just been accelerated in like chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water kind of metaphor. And I'm very good at that. I'm very good at going and all. I was almost like run myself down. And it really came back to my dad as well. My mom and dad ran their own businesses. I worked in those businesses from the age of 11, and you have to earn your own money. And if you don't have enough money, you need to go out and make more money. And if you don't feel up to it, you have to find a way to feel up to it. And it's your job to make sure things are moving. Yeah. And the house is working and all that. So it's like, there's also this big, I feel like one of my orange stories is that I have to take responsibility. I am in charge of my own life and also very responsible for other people's life. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's where it becomes very demanding. And that's both a benefit, it's really good and be really driving. My wife also said sometimes, you're here but not here, yeah? Because like I'm thinking not always about work, but more about what is the next thing I need to do? Do I need to go for a run? Do I need to? So, so you become almost, it's not about just work all the time. It's also about just being busy because that's what you've been told to be. Yeah. Busy and work hard. To lie on the sofa is terrifying. Yeah. Because like that's not comfortable. Yeah.
And it's been I think it's also been such a driver for you. You've had so much success because of that. But the guy I saw just before Christmas was exhausted because again, you were taking on way too much responsibility for others. You were working yourself. You couldn't stop, and you needed to stop. And that your origin story is so clear about why you do that. And I think we touched upon as well this taking responsibility piece. I see that
Mm.
quite a lot of leaders as well, that they feel they have to take responsibility
Mm.
for so many people and so many things, and actually teaching them to go, I think that might be an old story. That's an old story of yours. And once we get there, okay, we can see why. Okay, we need to stop you taking so much responsibility because actually the company is slowing down now because you're trying to do too much. You need to delegate out more, and it isn't your responsibility to take responsibility anymore. You've got to be up there leading the business and transitioning it. So yeah, you're right. It can be absolutely a wonderful thing, but it also can be something that massively slows you down. It can be a real stone in your shoe to kind of your future.
And how do you talk with a lot more people about these things than I do, but how do you work without finding the balance of these, things from your origin stories, which often both can be good or bad? And that's how I see them. There's none of them that they all there in some kind of way, but you can use the leverage of it. How do you actually manage to?
And that is change. That's the change, right? That's the transition. That's the shedding of the skin. It's because people will hold on to it like it's
Yeah.
like it's a piece of gold. No, you can't take that away from me because that's how my success has been built. So it's really talking about and learning a new way of doing things and allowing them to just stretch their legs a little bit, come back, stretch their legs a little bit, come back. and eventually we get there. You can't do it immediately. You can suggest things like, in terms of, okay, that is working. I totally understand it, but can we try something different? Can we talk a little bit about how you might try something different? And the reason that most people are working with me is that they've reached they want to go to the next level, or they've hit a bit of a wall. So there is a
Mm,
willingness to do that,
yeah.
but they are still hanging on to a lot because, and rightly so, because that's how they've got here. So change for them is very, very nerve wracking. For all of us, change is nerve wracking, moving to that sort of next place, because it feels unsafe, it's unknown, you don't want to make a mistake. Goes back to your nervous system, is like, oh my God, that this feels like danger. And that sort of chimp part of our brain is going to fight that tooth and nail. So it's a slow progress, and it's a trust piece as well. It's about learning to trust the person that you're with, that they've got their best self in my mind, that I want them to really do their absolute best. And I can see that this is an opportunity, but it's winning that trust all the time as well.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting. That's again, it's also in that thing of your origin story, you're trying to map. That's how I feel when I was thinking about preparing to this. I tried to feel my strength. Let's take the working hard analogy or metaphor. And I was trying to connect that when I work either with people or, partners or whatever. I want them then to praise me for that. They can see I've done a good job or worked hard. And it's important to me that they see that definitely the intention were there, even if the results were not there. And that actually sometimes people don't even see you're working hard. And that's what I've learned over the years. Like they don't even see because for them they're working on something else, or their mind is something else, or they're struggling with their origin story in some kind of way. And their origin story could be that what other people feel, and being praised is not important because you need to look after yourself, just to give an example.
Why is the praise so important to you, Michael? What if we're talking about the origin story? Why
Yeah.
is it important to you?
And and it's a really good question, and I don't think I dial 100% in, but I think it's a bit like confirming that I is actually doing well enough. And I think it comes from my dad. That was not like, he didn't throw around a lot of praise, yeah, like, and he was not a bad dad or anything. He was just like very traditional for that
Yeah.
period of time. Born in the 40s in the war, learned to build everything up himself. And he believes that, he's also very introverted man, very like in himself. So emotions are not something you can talk about. I can't remember my dad said that was something that upset him. Yeah. Right. And where I probably a bit more in my mom, but you get impacted by that. I think that comes from the origin story. But my mom also has this, comes from a farmer's family of 7 kids, out in the fields, picking up the greens, out working when you're 14 years old, stop going to school, get to work. Yeah. So it's a very different kind of mentality on the countryside. So I think all that again comes back to, a much more like, yeah, it's okay to be sad, but then move on. Yeah. And they also want to be recognized. If, my mom has always recognized my mom, my dad has probably not. So it probably comes from there. If you start asking back yourself, where could this all actually lie? And it's perfectly fine. I think it's also making peace, I think, with the origin story, isn't it? Sometimes, and say, it is
It,
what it is.
it, it
Yeah. And
totally is, because you can't change your story, and
yeah,
it's brought you this far. But if you want to keep growing and
yeah,
shedding the skin and becoming the version that we know is in there, not the version that's been shaped by others, but the version that you want to be, then yeah, of course you do. And I think going back to, it feels like praise was a real precious gem that you're sort of looking for, and then when you get it, it's something that you really appreciate. It's something that you need. And I think it's interesting you were saying about emotions. This is the other thing that I see a lot of, is quite a few people, and a lot of men actually, grow up in environments where emotions not really talked about, not really shown, so they don't learn how to have emotions and show emotions and be empathy for others as well. And that can be a very that can then really impact on a relationship. Of course, we go away and we get married and we have our relationships. And I remember saying to a client one day, they were saying, God, they always want to spend time with me. And I said, you wonder why they want to spend time with you. And when was the last time you just leaned in and gave her a hug and told her how you loved her? And I can't remember. I just don't remember, because that wasn't something that they were ever taught. So why would they know how to do that? And it's just that it's that stopping point and not taking anything for granted. So again, we can talk about change, and they wanted to have some kind of change in their relationships, and understand that emotions was just not something they'd ever been taught, and it was something they'd actually squashed down quite a bit. And so understanding how to use that and to give them little tools or techniques, or just that kind of leaning in and giving someone a hug or a kiss and say, hey, it's great to see you this morning, or I love you. It is transformational. That's just transformation as well. So yeah, the origin story is so huge, and it can bring up so much stuff, and you can't deal with it all at one time. But it's, for me, as working with people, it's so important, because I then have that origin story. I can always lean back to that. Whatever comes up in a conversation, in a session, I can always lean back. Oh, okay, should we go back to the origin story? Because you can see why that's coming through. Let's try and reframe that. Let's twist that on its head a little bit. Let's work with that. And then slowly but surely, they start to see the change that they're looking for.
Yeah, it's interesting with emotions, yeah, because lots of people like to talk about things that's very factual from A to B, especially in work and teams. When we talk about how we feel, it becomes very uncomfortable. I did a session with a new leadership team I'm a part, where we talked about principles about knowing each other better. So we have these relationship question on 16th card we got from a great guy that's been a guest on the podcast, Mike Cohen, and we talk about how do we feel when somebody let us down? What kind of emotion does that bring up in us, and how to react to that situation? Yeah. And it's a really powerful question, and it takes an hour, a question like that, in a group of 6, yeah? And you get very close to each other. But you have to have these prompts to have those conversations. The same goes in relationships, I think. If you don't have, if you never talked about emotions and how you feel about things, you can see 6 people will have different level of what they feel okay about to talk about your emotion. And they're so important in transition that you actually talk about emotion, because it's all about that. Yeah, it's all about how you feel and emotive bit and where you come from. And also the bit, there's also a question, what in the past is making you feel difficult about what we have to do right now. Yeah.
And how
come things in. Yeah.
How transformational for a team to understand that when you say this, I feel this. Because you don't really, that's not how I meant it.
Yeah.
That's not how I meant that comment. And that is, in its way, everybody walks out of the room closer, more understanding, because I think we all feel that everybody has the same sort of map of the world that we all do. We all react to the same things. We all feel strongly about this, and we don't. And we keep being reminded on podcasts and books and stuff as well. But we still sit in rooms with 5 other people thinking, why are they having that reaction? That's a ridiculous reaction. And then they explain, well, actually, to be honest, as a child, I was told this. So I do have an instinctive reaction. I feel it in my nervous system, in my body. That's the reaction I'm going to have. Oh my goodness, that's so helpful for me to understand. So he's so right.
And it was just like a spin off what you said. And I think in the next pillar we talked about values in one of our other conversations. I think that was a conversation, one of the first one. We talked about belief systems and values, and you really need to understand what you want in principle, and what kind of life you want. And I think people can dive into that, but actually what I think we should maybe jump forward to, I think we should talk about the nervous system, Ellie, and the third pillar, the foundation of all change, as you call it. And then I think it will be really about how do you implement that, I think, to make sure we get around this conversation in the right way before we run out of time. I was thinking about that, because I think what you talked with me about the last, you've probably been on this for the last year when you talk about the nervous system, I think is absolutely fascinating. And it's been make me think about if I'm a beyond the line or below the line with my nervous system. And I've been trying to figure out where is my nervous system. Definitely before Christmas we met, I was below the line and I knew it. Yeah. And I knew there's only one way now is finding a way back. Yeah. I had to lean into it. I had to accept the brutal facts. I was below the line. And my nervous system it's not always fight or flight in my view, but also can just be your energy. I talked a lot about energy, but I can see it's my nervous system that was not all right. Yeah. Because my body reacts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, we talk about pillars, but my goodness, this is such a pillar that really people just don't talk enough about. And it's what I'm trying to talk so much more to people about as well. You can talk about goals, and obviously we've talked about the origin story and values and roadmaps and habits and implementation, but the nervous system, really truly understanding how your nervous system and how you sit in your nervous system, again, is completely transformational. I've got a PDF which I can share with the podcast. I don't know if you do that, Michael. I can share that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that. Yeah.
So it's the polyvagal system, and it's, I mean, hopefully people are fairly familiar with that sort of fight or flight. So you have this, the ventral vagal, which is that sort of calm, connected part of your nervous system. You've got the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight. And then you've got the dorsal vagal, which is the, I can't cope, I'm just going to crash, everyone stop talking to me, and I need to just sit in silence, or I need to go for a walk. That's that kind of completely crash state. And so many people are currently living in that sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. They wake up in the morning, they switch on the radio. What do they hear? Trump is doing this. The government is doing that. There's another war over here. Interest rates, house prices are dropping. Already, their nervous system is in the sympathetic nervous system because they're taking in information that is going to drive fight or flight, concern, worry. Oh my God. Oh my God. Then they have a cup of coffee, which in trust is even more. They don't get any sunlight. They're rushed. They've got up too late. They look at their watch, think, oh my goodness, I've got to get on the screen, or I've got to get to work. They miss their tube. They're running for their tube. They are living in that sort of sympathetic nervous system. They barely had any breakfast. So the nutrition is incredibly low. So their cortisol levels are just, you can feel it running around your body. So it's not even 10 o'clock yet, and people are already in their sympathetic nervous system. Then they go into their first meeting and they're told that the numbers are down, or so-and-so's left, so you need to go and fill that position, or you need to go and see this. By 11 o'clock, you're even more. So you can see how this just amounts. And by the time you get back to, if you have a family, or get back home, or wherever you're going, you're done. You are crashed. And then you might say, well, look, should we go to the cinema? And you find yourself cinema, you can't even really focus on the film. Or you go to a restaurant, you're not present. Your phone is going off left, right, and center. This is the other thing that people do in the morning. They look straight at their phone, and if you're a founder or a leader or an exec, there's normally numbers coming through. There's a number of WhatsApps. There's people jumping into your life and hijacking your life before 8 o'clock. So and everything that you are doing is driving that nervous system. And if you live like that, you get addicted to that way of living. So you're always craving that. So really what this is about, and this is why people talk about cold water therapy, meditation, yoga, not having your coffee for the first 90 minutes, don't look at your phone for the first hour, 2 hours, go out in sunlight, go for a short walk, spend some time, connect with loved ones, don't look at the phone, any number of things. You are setting your day up in the right way, because actually what you are is you're in the ventral vagal, that you're in that sort of calm, connected space. Then you're giving yourself a chance to have a really great day and to achieve things and be more creative, because if you're living in sympathetic, you're not going to be creative. You're not going to think out of the box. Everything feels a massive challenge. Somebody once said to me, nothing looks as bad as it was the night before after a good night's sleep. It just doesn't. Yeah, you have a
Hmm.
great night. The night before, you're like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. You have 7, 8 hours sleep. The world seems like a better place. So I think that's what routine, this is what so many people, the Instagram stuff, it's those things that really help with the nervous system to calm it down. And this is, you were talking about, we were talking earlier about somebody who wants to be a marathon runner. And, if that puts so much stress on your body, and someone that's super stressed or living in their nervous system, don't go and do heavy weights. Don't go run a marathon. Go do some yoga, go walk somewhere, just bring the nervous system down, because you need to calm the system down, because everything is living in your body.
Yeah.
Everything, all your
Yeah. Up here on your shoulders and your
or
tummy. Yeah.
it's all living there. You can feel it in the body, but people just ignore it and they go, I'll just go and do a heavy weight session or go to the gym because that's what we're supposed to do. And actually, no, give yourself a chance to bring that nervous system down, and you just make better decisions. If you're living up in that sympathetic nervous system, your reactions are like that. You're much jumpier with people. You flip out the most ridiculous things. Somebody jumps in front of you in the coffee queue. You flip out. You're on your phone because you're stressed. You're talking to your boss, and then that suddenly turns into a big thing. Well, every moment is almost designed to keep us in that fight or flight. So if somebody is craving to transition, to grow, to reinvent themselves, and actually to live the life they really want to, you've got to understand where you are in your nervous system. Does that make sense? It's got a long
It make totally sense. And I think it's about, where do you find out when you need to make the correction? I was almost say, like, because you sometimes also just get caught up in life, life and work, and
absolutely. Look,
and it's impossible to avoid it sometimes. But again, then how do you how do you get aware, and how do you actually get yourself, you said, having these good routines, and sometimes people can't do those routines anymore, but how do they actually find a way? How do your clients you work with find ways around that? Because I guess everybody has to find their own little algorithm. That's how I find that sometimes you need to change the algorithm again, because it's not working, that kind of system anymore, because either you moved on or you're in a new situation where you have to approach things differently.
Yeah, and yes, and it's a great point, Michael, because we can't live in Zen the whole time. We're all sitting on a rock and meditating 24 hours a day. Not how we live. We live in a very frantic, very visual, loud, demanding world. So we've got to learn to manage that. The question you ask is, how do I start? I start really with the morning. I just say to clients, look, can you just do one thing for me? Get a flask, get an espresso or a flask, fill it with hot water and lemon, and go for a 20-minute walk. Just do that. Can we stop the coffee straight away? Just go and do that. Get up a bit earlier and go and do that. If that's the only thing that you start your day off doing, and you have your coffee 90 minutes later, it's going to have an effect. That's a building. Going back to the sort of the James Clear piece. It's building a habit, but the feedback you get is, oh my goodness, I actually feel calmer. And don't pick up your phone. That's the other thing. Don't pick up your phone. Don't put a podcast on. Don't have loads of information coming in, hijacking your brain and your nervous system. Just be calm. Go and listen to the birds. It's not very nice at the moment, but you wrap up warm, go out, get some fresh air, sip your hot water and lemon when you're walking around the park, come back. Don't go on the phone again. Spend a bit of time, if you were living with people, spend a bit of time with them. And that change, just that tweak will massively help. And of course, then there's the sleep. It's shutting down the laptop before you go to bed. It's all the things that we talk about all the time. But why are we doing it? Is because we want to give ourselves, the nervous system, a chance to be calm. Because further down the line, I'm 57 now, so I'm sort of heading towards Sniper Rally, as they call it. So I keep myself incredibly fit and healthy and nutrition, but I'm aware of that as well. I'm still as driven as ever. I'm a father to young kids, so I need to make sure I'm fit for them. But I'm moving into that stage of life where I've got to make sure that I'm not going to give myself a heart attack and stuff. Because when you're younger, you can just about cope with it, but when people burn out, and systems burning out. That's what it really is. Their nervous systems are so high to fight. This is why they just collapse and go to bed for 2 weeks. So those just, I mean, I could give you a load more, but just starting with those small hacks makes a big difference. But it's the awareness, I think, more than anything. I think whenever I show people the diagram and say, look, this is where you're living, we have got to get you to spend a bit more time up here, they can start to notice it, and they start to notice what things are driving that, and whether they can change their habits to stop living like that. It's just a transformational way of living, actually, once you become aware of it. And you can start to, and then you start to see it, think, oh my goodness, I can see how I'm living at that. I'm living like that all the time.
It's quite interesting. One thing you said, just to reflect a bit on myself, was at a period in the autumn where it was quite full on, and the business I'm now involved with, they start at 5 o'clock. So there's something about being a visible leader. I believe you lead from the front. You need to meet the people that does the hard work as well. You need to go engage with them and maybe sometimes help them if necessary. That's how hospitality is. And it's a catering business, so the food has to be out at 11 o'clock in people's offices. So that's why it's so early. Yeah. And that does something to your rhythm. So that rhythm I had before this challenge or this job was actually I had time in the morning. I could do all those things. And I had to reconfigure my whole thing because I couldn't, get up at 3 o'clock to do all the same things I did before. I still needed my sleep, and I couldn't go to bed at 7, I still have a family and to attend to. So I've found ways of making either the session shorter or something I can do on the go. It's the walk. Then, you are cycling or you're actually walking the last piece of the walk before you get to work. And you're not on the phone. You're not trying to start solving problems. You don't do that before you walk in the door, because you're not there anyway, so you can't solve anything from the distance in a way. And the good thing about leadership is that you understand sometimes you don't have to react. Sometimes problems goes away, and often in many places, people turning in sick or whatever they're doing, what's happening, it's just all this, and you can feel the emotion going on off on a WhatsApp group and so on, and then your nervousness starts to run. And I think really one of the things you said was quite interesting. Because I always, had my coffee as one of the first things after I'd done all my things. And I kept that in, but that was like, I forgot that was 1.5 hours, 2 hours after I got up. So I got my coffee in the morning when I got up because that was like that. And I put butter in because then it's an extra power fuel to the brain, I thought. And then I found out, actually, I was reading a book about coffee in the morning, and it's called One Thing, and I can't remember. He's called Michael, the doctor from BBC, but it doesn't matter. It's like the one thing you can do to change or something. Learn from his podcast. Great, but we'll put it in the show notes. I can't remember. Michael Mosley's, the guy, he died last year, unfortunately. But he gives this thing about coffee, and I was rereading that in the autumn. So, oh my God, man, I should know this. I just forgotten something, because again, it was just suddenly become a bad habit, the thing. It's too early, man. I need to wait 2 hours. And I started doing that back in December, and but it takes time, because then you addicted to that habit and you need to get out of it again. The 1%, 1%, 1%. And the clarity that gives in the morning and the rest of the day is insane, because your system is not blown up,
No, and it feels like, and of course, in my previous life, running Ollie and Steen, and that would be sometimes 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock at the bakery, and then into the stores and going around there. Like you, my morning routine was my absolute foundation, and I couldn't do that. It sounds like what you were doing was less about putting more in, but taking more things out.
Exactly.
Not doing that, not picking up your phone, not listening to social media, or you sort of take things away. And I think that's what it's about. It's not always about adding things in, all these great hacks. It's about what you're not doing, and just living in a state of peace for a while, just giving your nervous system time to assimilate to the day. And then you can have your coffee and all the other things as well.
And you talked about also you think you have to go to the gym or you have to go for that run, and I'm a runner. I'll still say I'm a runner, but I'm running and don't run 4 times a week. right now because I've gone through a transition. My body needs more rest. So I actually turned up more yoga and trying to do that. I've actually been flexible about how I can do that. I've been quite lucky where we moved to. There's a yoga studio down in the basement. So it's very clear every day. It's there. I bought the subscription, so it means that I go. And then I've also just leaned into, it's not about the effort I put in when I exercise, it's actually about getting my body to do something different and get the movement in. And I bought myself a morning subscription. Sometimes before I started work 3 times a week, when it goes best, I go for a swim. And it's not a performance swim, it's just a light swim. And then in the winter, going into the sauna and get some cold showers afterwards. And actually, that's really it, because it feels like a reward. I've chosen a place that's very nice to come. Well, it's beautiful. The surrounding is beautiful. It makes you feel good in the morning. Yeah, the light is beautiful. There's some nice music playing in the changing rooms. More like relaxing, energetic music as well. That is also one thing I found out. Even if you don't have and your brain goes off, if you can't really sit down and meditate, just listen to relaxing music. Really can calm your nervous system down and take you above the line again.
And do you notice the difference from doing this, from all this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's even just listening to you makes me feel quite calm. It's just that the sort and the swimming. Do you notice the difference? Are you making better decisions? Are you much calmer? Because I know you're going through. There's a lot of this new change with the job and stuff. There's a lot coming at you. Do you feel that you're managing it well because of that?
I can definitely see the difference. And December, as all know, in hospitality is mental. It just is. And then you go into it and you want to hold on to something you have, and then you turn down the dial, and then there's I had a week where I didn't do anything. There was lots of moving around, lots of travel, and I didn't have my swimming. And I found out the swimming and that last walk before work is really if they go, my nervous system gets out of control. Yeah? I can feel get overwhelmed by looking at the email. And then you start all the bad things. You start to look at your phone too early and all those things because you don't have that thing.
Yeah.
Actually pick you.
You're out of control. Yeah. You're off. And it's very, bring it back.
Yeah. And I think another thing I kept as well, there was 3 things I kept. I made sure I exercise every day. And if I can't be straight, I will go out early in the morning when I've done the things I need to do in my job, or talk with people, and then make sure there is some kind of space where you can walk. Yeah. Just out when the light comes, especially in the winter, when there's some light at some point in the day. Yeah. Come out for half an hour, walk, do your phone calls while you walk or whatever you need to do. Yeah. And then I have something I've done the last couple of years is reading parts of Stoic philosophy, because it just is so grounding in so much of it, because it actually takes you out of that and reminds you how little you actually should be focusing on controlling things, because there's a lot of things you're out of your control and there's some things you can control about, and it's okay.
Yeah, my business partner Tara often talks about the universal laws that she's just created, and what are those laws that if your heart stops beating, you'll die, right? They're the universal laws that you can make up yourself. That there are not many things that actually are absolutely fixed. So the law that is, I'm responsible for my own health. That's a great law to have. I'm responsible for my reactions to others. But if you have part of your universal laws, there isn't really, if you lose a job, it's a terrible thing, but you can get another job. There are very few things in life that actually are going to destroy your life or finish your life. There are some horrendous things, but they are few and far between. And when you're living in that sort of nervous system, everything feels like a disaster. Use words like disaster and it's not really a disaster. An earthquake's a disaster. You losing a deal on a particular thing is not a disaster. It's just something that we'll have to go out and get a new deal, for instance. And I think if you kind of look at those sort of universal rules and make up your own stuff and look at it and thinking, actually, there's very, very few things that really, really, really are genuinely going to change my life in a negative way. But actually, if I choose to live by these universal rules, there are 10 rules that actually will genuinely change my life. the way I am with others. I want to treat others how I want to be treated myself. I want to look after my own health. I don't want to react every time something says something to me. I want to lead with kindness. My leadership style is about lifting others up. It's all those things. And I think once we start to remember, actually, there are very few things in life that are absolutely going to kill us, essentially, or stop us in our tracks. But we live constantly in this huge amount of stress, thinking everything, or our nervous system think is going to kill us, is going to finish us off, and it's just not true. It's how we set ourselves up every day for it.
And it's quite interesting that story we tell us how bad something is, or somebody will think about me in a certain way if I don't do this now. It's also because when do you stop in the day when it's so hectic? Yeah. And there is this period where your nervous system under pressure. How can you feel good with yourself when you look at your long list of things you haven't done? And in principle, your nervous system is hammering, but and deep down, I actually need to stop now to show up in a reasonably or the best person I can be tomorrow. Yeah. Especially in leaders' jobs where suddenly in one moment for the other, something happens. Yeah. And then everybody in the organization will call it's a catastrophe that happened and the clients are not happy. And then you feel the urgency of everything. Yeah.
Oh, your whole
But
body,
yeah.
whole body does a shift. Yeah.
But you need to stop
Yeah.
today, and then you have to start again tomorrow, in a way. And then you feel that you have to sit in the evening, and you have sometimes maybe have to, but in general, nothing's going to change before tomorrow.
Yeah.
And actually, it's more about letting it go, and this constant pressure there is of responding faster and faster in life and work. I think also there's something to think about there, because that's really something that can stress yours if you're a leader, and your team's nervous system. Yeah. If you are constantly racing things, have you seen that? Have you done that? So you're building yourself up with lots and lots of pressure, and the nervous system goes crazy, and the people below you. Yeah. Because that's quite interesting. When you get exhausted, your team get exhausted.
Everybody picks it up. And I think what you just said was really interesting, Michael. If you're in that constant state of living like that all the time, move, and that pushing that nervous energy out to everybody else, nervous system energy out to everyone else, that fight or flight, everybody's going to pick that up. But it gives you no opportunity to step back and go, okay, what have we done? What's gone wrong here? How do we change this? What do we do differently in the future? Because that moment is gone, but we're still living in that moment, and then moving on to the next thing. We're not giving ourselves any chance to really think about the challenge for the next time. How do we fix this? What can we do differently? Who do I need to put in place? What systems do I need to put in place? We are just barreling through to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So it is our duty as leaders or founders of people to take that time out, to have that creative space and think, okay, this has happened. What are we going to do about it? If you're living in your nervous system all the time, that fight or flight, you never do that. So the same stuff happens.
It's really, really interesting. And then I think lots of people are not aware about that. Like, they maybe feel they have sore muscles or bones. And quite funny, I found out now where my early warning signs are when my nervous system goes off, because it's actually down around my hip and lower back.
Yeah.
There's an old marathon injury there, so I'm very vulnerable. So everything goes down there. Yeah. So if it gets really bad, I have to go to the osteopath. And in principle, it's not like he fixes. I actually thought in the beginning he's fixing muscles on me and getting me back to shape. Like, he's just pushing all that really bad energy out in the system, and then you get exhausted afterwards because you have to get it out, and you feel maybe sometimes a bit ill. Yeah, because there's all this stuff that's sitting there. Yeah, it could also be here for some people. They are crunched up there. But it's such an interesting thing. So you get early warning signs. So just that's been my dashboard. When it starts to hurt down in that region, I just know good to do some yoga and stretching. It'll be nice to release it, but also I just need to find a way.
the body's always telling you,
Yeah.
it gets, the body knows the truth. The body's always telling us. It's just that we move through life so quickly, and we're always in such a rush that it's always trying to tell, it's sending signals all the time. And then when people hit burnout, they don't just suddenly hit burnout. They've had a load of signals previous to that they've chosen to ignore. As tough as it is, they've ignored it. So the body just says, okay, fine, we're just going to burn out, we're just going to crash. You need to go and sleep for 2 weeks. But actually, because they were living in their nervous system, that fight or flight constantly, that's what's happened. And, we started this conversation really around change and transformation and whatever. And you simply cannot go through any kind of transition or change or aspire to live the life that you really want until you are aware of that nervous system and how you're living in it all day long. Yes, it comes back to the origin story, the values, the nervous system, the vision, the identity and the foundations, and the implementation. But until you've got that nervous system piece really resolved, it's very difficult to really go through the change that you really want to.
Yeah. Well, that is a great place for us to round up. Ali, any what do you call it, top advice or anything you want to leave people with as they go into 2026 and keep moving on? Some people maybe already been back as we release this conversation, but they probably already either pushed themselves way too hard or
Yeah. I think probably. I mean, and it's we're obviously recording this just as we get into Jan. I think everybody thinks that they 2nd of Jan or 1st of Jan, they have to hit the road really hard. I would say let January be just a time of kind of just getting into it, making some proper plans. Everybody obviously goes into their diets and their gyms and don't drink and stuff as well. And then it just for a lot of people, it just moves away. I think don't feel that you have to achieve everything in January. I think probably, I think having a really great long-term plan to understand what you really want to be achieving is a way better plan than just hitting the road and cracking on. And also stepping back every month and going, am I on track? Is this what I want to be doing with my life? Is this what am I doing with this particular project? Rather than just barreling on and not asking the right questions, I think sometimes it's good just to stop and go, okay, what's getting in the way? What am I not doing? Am I doing the right thing in order to be moving forward? Because it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next week. It's going to happen over years. But we have to keep stopping and reminding ourselves what we're trying to do here as well.
That's great advice, because that monthly stop up, but also setting directions and working. And I think I talked a bit about with somebody earlier. He asked me, so how are you running into the new year? I said, actually, I phrased it in a different way. I'm landing into the new year. So instead of and finding out how I'm going to set off during the next couple of weeks, I said, but I'm not I have some goals and intention and all that, but I'm still calibrating them. And if you're landing, it feels much more like, okay, I'm landing into whatever this is. And in principle, just continuation of what you just had. The beautiful thing is you often have a break over Christmas just to get the nervous system in place, really grounded. And that was the only thing I was trying to do, and succeeded or not succeeded. I think I'm definitely in a better state than I was before Christmas, but now it's much more for me. One of my intentions this year is actually, after our conversation before Christmas, how can I actually have a nervous system where I'm in plus most of the time or every day? It's what I'm going to need to do today, and what is actually getting away in the calendar today to do that. And if it is there any possibility I can cancel something or get back into the right place, both in my head and my body.
And I think it's not just the what, it's the who as well. If in your life is driving your nervous system as well. Sometimes
that's
as well.
Yeah. Who around you is a energy vampire, I normally call them. And takes sucks all the time. Great, Ali. You will share the PDF. You're gonna send me a PDF.
I'll send that across.
Yeah, I will put the links to some of the previous episodes to also help with some of these pillars. And then I think, thank you so much for coming, sending
Thank
you
you again for
power and energy to the next year, and we'll be back next year if everything goes well. We'll be back and try to share something that will make you better as an individual, and when you get better, the world would get better, I believe. So thank you so much, Ali, for coming.
Thank you, Michael. Lovely to be here again. Have a great year.
You too.